Good morning, student. You can see that the name of your institute, that is Clear Concept, which caters the need for art student. You can see the subjects which has been displayed, that is history, political science, geography, economics, sociology, psychology, English. Plus you have the AC facility, and we have two batches, that is in the morning and in the evening. Myself, Bhanu Prasad, and I'm your teacher of history and political science. Now, I'm going to teach a chapter from political science. That is, the chapter name is Cold War Era. Now, this started after the Second World War, that is 1945. Now, during that time, USA was the only country which had the atom bomb. And by dropping two atom bombs in Japan, USA was declared as the superpower of the world. Now, the second country which had the atom bomb, it was USSR. That is, after 3 years, they made the atom bomb. Now, both the country became equally rich, equally powerful, and possessed or had deadly or dangerous weapons. Now, between these two countries, the fight was of the type of government they had. That means they had the competition, they had the tension. Now, USA, or what we can call it, that is the Western countries, they follow a capitalist form of government, that is capitalism. Capital means money, and those who had lot of money, they opened factories and industries. Now, over private ownership is allowed, government cannot interfere. But on the other hand, USSR, which means the entire thing will be controlled by the government, that is the production, distribution, no private ownership. So USSR wanted to expand in the world, and USA did not want it that socialist form of government should expand in the world. So that is why there was tension between the two countries, there was competition between the two countries, and confrontation. Several times they decided to talk if serious or critical matter happened. Now we'll discuss a little flashback of the Second World War. Now, in the Second World War, we had two groups. One group was called as the Allied Power, that is US, England, France, and USSR. Another group was called as Axis Power, and they were Germany, Italy, Japan. Now, this war took place due to the First World War. The reason, in the First World War, the same countries were present, but only in the Germany side, they never had Japan. They had Austria, Hungary. And even in the First World War, Germany had lost. Now, after losing the war, the victorious country, the winner of the First World War, forced Germany to sign a treaty, which was called the Treaty of Versailles. Now, this treaty was considered as harsh, not a good treaty. They were forced to sign, in which Germany was not allowed to keep armies more than 1 lakh. Then their important area of resources were taken away by England, France, and USSR. Thirdly, the loss of the First World War, what England, France, and USSR had faced, Germany had to pay with golds. So, Germany wanted to take the revenge of the Treaty of Versailles under Hitler. So, this was the reason of the Second World War. Now, this war, compared to the First World War, it was very big. It covered a very big area. That means the area that they covered, it was Europe, Asia, China, and Myanmar. So, in this war, there was tremendous losses or heavy losses of properties, civilian, the people, those who doesn't fight, they also died. Then soldiers. Beside that, during the war, no production took place. The market, the economy happened to get destroyed, and there were many injured soldiers also. So, overall, the Second World War created a drastic effect in many countries of Europe, Asia, China, and Myanmar. After this, we see that USA happened to drop two atom bombs, one in Nagasaki and another in Hiroshima. Now, once Hitler committed suicide, the war in Europe was completely ended, or it was over. Now, the armies of the four countries, that is US, England, France, and USSR, and was entering Japan, because in Asia, Japan was still active. That means Japan was not willing to stop the war. So, if the forces of the four countries, if they had reached Japan, then Japan would have lost. So there is no question arises of dropping two atom bombs. But still too, USA dropped it. Even the scientists who had made the atom bombs, even they also had warned USA not to use atom bombs. The day it will be used, from that day onward, arms race will be started, which means every country will start producing deadly and dangerous weapon. Now, the supporters of USA, they said that what USA did in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, it was good, because they wanted to stop or end the war, because this war was bringing massive losses of properties, civilian, soldiers, and economy was getting destroyed. But those who did not support USA, the countries which is called as the critics, they say that there was no need to drop the atom bomb. So it means that by dropping this atom bomb, USA wanted to show that I am the superpower of the world. Secondly, USA never wanted that USSR should expand in Asia. In other words, wanted to check USSR expansion. Now, the chapter starts with Cuban missiles, but I have explained what do you mean by Cold War, so that you can understand what was the reason of tension. Now, in the Cold War, I had mentioned that there was a tension, competition between the two countries, and the first tension took place about Cuba. Now, Cuba is an island country very close to USA. And if you see in the map, world map, USSR is very far. So they wanted, means USSR wanted to make Cuba as a military base so that from Cuba they can easily attack USA in case if USA thinks of conducting war. Now, USSR and plus Cuba was frightened that there are chances that USA may capture or attack Cuba. So the president Fidel Castro of Cuba was frightened. Now, this Cuba was supported by USSR because Cuba had the same form of government, that is the communist form of government. USSR supported this country with money, finance, weapons, and armies and technology. So, the USSR leader Nikita Khrushchev decided to take a very drastic step in the year 1962. Now, in 1962, USSR installed nuclear missiles, and after 3 weeks, nuclear weapons. Now, when the news reached USA, now USA became cautious that we have to take also some step to check this. If it is not checked, then USSR can do more danger to our country. So the US President John F. Kennedy consulted his advisors, ministers, military general, and gave the order to its navy that if any ship comes from USSR side toward Cuba, it should be destroyed. So the Cuba or in Cuba, the missiles or nuclear weapon which was installed, it created tension between USA and USSR. This tension was also present in the entire countries of the world. Now they were frightened because they had seen the drastic effect of the Second World War. That if these two countries fights, what will happen in the world? But something good happened, that USSR did not send the ships to Cuba. In other words, we can say that USSR avoided the war, means not to fight. Even same thing happened with USA, that even USA also avoided the war. So there was no fight between USA and USSR. Due to this, the whole countries in the world happened to get a great relief. Now, after this, what we see, that there was not only the fight of power or weapon between USA and USSR. There were some other fights also, and it was called as ideological conflict. As we know it very well, that in USA and the supporter of USA or the countries which joined with USA, they were called as Western alliances. Now they had a capitalist form of government. They followed liberal democracy. Now, by liberal democracy, we mean where the government is going to be elected by the people, even the head, and the government can be removed. Then the people has the freedom of speech and expression. They can do any kind of business in any part of their country. So in other words, the private sector was allowed to flourish in their country. On the other hand, the countries which supported USSR, they were called as Eastern Alliances. Now, USSR and its supporter followed the policy of socialism or communism, which means that no private ownership will be present. Everything will be controlled by the government. That means the production, the distribution. And the government will think about the benefit of the workers. The profit of the country will be shared among the workers. But this thing is not done in capitalism. The profit is not shared, but the workers are being highly paid. So what we see over here, that there was a fight of ideology. And at present, you can see all over the world that capitalism and liberal democracy